I bet you can hear me. Follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Jolene is going to give us an inspiration today. You may all be seated if you would like.
Yeah, you don't need to stand for me. I think we've got it now. When Jim and I were in Phoenix, past Medford, not Arizona, a couple weeks ago for the district grant meeting, we were at Phoenix High School, and it's a beautiful high school. And they had this banner up on the wall, and it had a phrase on it, and so I took a picture of it. That would be a great inspiration. And what it says, choose excellence. Expecting excellence from yourself is a choice. Striving for excellence each day is a lifestyle.
Very nice. Thank you. All right. Looking around the room, I'm looking and on Zoom, our Zoom folks. I don't see any visiting Rotarians other than our speaker today. I'll introduce him a little bit, Aimee Walsh. Any other guests? I think it's just us. All right, well, welcome everyone. The only announcement that I have, unless somebody else has one, is that we are having a club social tonight at the Oregon Port Authority and Pizza, whatever it is, on 7th Street. So if you can join us, we would love to see you. I think we're going to have folks there starting at 5 that come in whenever you're able to drop by, and we'd love to see you and hang out. Yes, please, Josie. Yeah.
So we're going to do the highway cleanup on April 22nd in the morning, 8 to probably 11. So I'm going to pass around a sign-up sheet. If you can make it that day, it's a Saturday. It also happens to be Earth Day. We would love to have you join us.
Wonderful. Thank you. And there's a whole list of save the dates in the emails that I've been sending out, and I assume in the Navigator as well. So there's a bunch of stuff coming up. One of the things that we'll have a sign up sheet probably next week is for the all club social. So all 4 Rotary clubs in Josephine County are having a social out at Wildlife Images on May 11th. And there will be a small ticket fee to have dinner. Papa Terrell's barbecue is going to be catering. It's kid friendly, so you can bring your kids, your grandkids with you. And it's been a popular social event for us for at least 1 or 2 years. So hope to see many of you there as well.
What time?
May 11th, I believe we're starting at 5:30. If you want like a tour, and dinner starts at 6, but I will have confirmation for you, next week, and price and all that kind of stuff. So, and then there's a whole bunch of more. We've got track meets coming up, and we've got the Friday Club is hosting a social that they're inviting everyone to at the Road Bowl in June. There's all kinds of fun stuff. And of course, Porch Fest is coming up not too far down the Look Road. So lots of exciting things. But for today, I'm very excited to be able to introduce everyone to our district governor, Aimee Walsh. And I was trying to think yesterday when I first met her, and I think it must have been when I was an assistant governor and Aimee was the executive assistant for then District Governor Claudette McWilliams. And I think we probably met either at PETS or one of the district leadership events. And we got to see each other and know each other quite a bit through district events that year and for a couple of years after that. And Aimee is a ton of fun. She is a member and past president of the Rotary Club of Eugene Metro. She's the chief executive officer of a nonprofit organization in Eugene called Direction Service. I almost got it. Yeah, mother to 5, grandchildren to 10. She is just the epitome of a Rotarian and a great choice for us as a district governor for District 5110. And so I'm happy to invite her up to tell us a little bit about her Rotary story and what's happening in the district.
I do have a bobblehead. Let me tell you about the bobblehead first, just to get us started. So for folks who aren't familiar with it, but many of you probably are, we have clubs that make up districts, districts that make up zones, and then our zone directors are the directors for the board for Rotary International. And in our zone pairing, we are called the Big West Zone, and there's about 30 districts represented, and that spans from Alaska and parts of Canada all the way down into the Texas Panhandle. And so as you get ready to become governor, you go through lots of different training groups and courses and opportunities to be together. And they tell you over and over again that the highlight of your experience will be this thing called International Assembly, where they bring all the district governors elect from all over the world. I think there's like 530 some districts in the world. And you get to meet each other and connect, and you have a cultural exchange opportunity. And so our spouses were in charge of our cultural exchange for our zone, and they came up with the idea of creating these bobblehead replicas of all the district governor elects. And then at the last minute, we didn't get to go to International Assembly. There was a surge in the pandemic, and so it went online. And I thought to myself, what am I going to do with this bobblehead that we've invested some resources into having made? And so as a former teacher, I decided it would be my flat Stanley. And so she's been traveling with me on all the visits and adventures we've been having, and you can follow along on social media. She has her own Instagram, On the Go with DG Aimee, and we're having a great time. So anyway, that's the story of the bobblehead. Yeah, so well, thank you for having me here. I'm so excited to get to finally get in to be with your group in person. And as we were doing all the preparation and getting ready to be district governor, much of my time has been online, and it's been awful for me. I am somebody who enjoys being in the room with Rotarians and hearing and seeing what you're doing and being a part of all that was the highlight of what this whole journey has been. So finally, I'm getting to do that, and I'm so happy. As Gina Marie said, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, and then give some updates around what's happening in the district, and then answer any questions that you might have for me. So let's just dive in. And I keep notes about this because it's a personal story. So sometimes emotions still come back to me about this stuff. So about 17 years ago, I found myself in a very small, cramped conference room as they led my beautiful 11-year-old daughter away with the promise of some cartoons and cookies. And I had taken her here to this children's hospital 2 hours away from home, looking for answers as to why she was suddenly so gravely ill. And after 2 days of procedures and tests, I was anxiously awaiting some answers. I was newly divorced, so I sat alone in that cold room, anxious, gripping my bag tightly. I sat there without a partner and without insurance. My heart began to pound as I saw the faces of the team of medical professionals, doctors, residents, a social worker, who began cramming into that room with me. And that pounding turned to the roar of the ocean in my ears as I heard the words kidney failure. My heart just fell. I started to have a small flicker of hope, though, when they began to talk about possible treatment options. And even given our insurance and financial situation, there was a possibility of joining a clinical trial that would pay for the cost of treatment and medicine. However, I would need to come up with $500 a month for the medication until she could be accepted into that study. I began to panic as my mind raced to think about how I was going to come up with that extra $500 a month. And in that moment, I never felt more alone or less capable. The social worker pulled me back to the room and brought my attention back, and she said that there was a fund that was helping families like ours cover expenses like these. And she thought that maybe she could get the medicine paid for. And when she said it was a local Rotary club that was covering those expenses, I just filed that information away in my brain next to people like my grandpa, who was an elk and a Shriner. Nice, kind, old men. A couple years after that, I found myself standing in front of a room of Rotarians, and I was doing a presentation about the work that my agency was doing around the treatment and prevention of child abuse in our community as a recipient of the Great Rotary Duck Race. And as I sat there, I was marveled by the range of ages of the men and women in that Rotary Club. And they began to talk about things that they were doing and giving announcements and updates around their projects and activities. And they were talking about books in the hands of local first graders and computers in a classroom in Nepal, a water project that was happening in Africa. And they were even preparing a medical team to go to Guatemala. And I said to myself, incredulously, maybe a little louder than I meant to, who are these people? And the woman next to me laughed and smiled and said, we're Rotarians and you should be one. So now it's all these years later, and I find myself still standing in front of groups of Rotarians, and I'm still amazed at all the ways that people spend their time and their talent and their treasures to make a difference in the world and in their communities. And because of that, I have never felt less alone or more capable. And that's because of you all and all the ways that you show up for your community and for each other and for the world. And I'm just so proud to be a Rotarian. And one of my favorite stories that's happened with me and my children is I was watching a documentary, and this documentary was about people who experience disability in Africa. And often if you have a disability in Africa, you're sent away from your village to live in a more institutional setting. And that's sometimes because of the mobility challenges and sometimes because of the stigma of having a disability. And so in this one institutional setting, this group of people have formed a musical troupe, and they're incredibly talented, and they're traveling all over Europe or in Africa and Europe performing, and they're challenging the stereotypes around disability. So that was the point of the documentary, very related to what I do professionally. But as I watched it, my little girl suddenly says, look, Mama, it's your people. And I thought she was talking about the students. And what she was talking about was on the outside of the building that the students were coming out of was the Rotary Wheel or Mark of Excellence. And my daughter saw that and said, look, Mama, it's your people. So as I'm traveling around the district and driving into communities, I'll see that mark. I see it on projects, on benches, on track buildings, on food pantries, on all kinds of different places. Community gardens. I'm just, the things I've gotten to see as I've been traveling is incredible. And I know when I see that, here's my people. They're showing up for their community. They're taking care of each other. It's amazing. And it's just an honor. So as district governor, you have to talk about the foundation. There's a requirement somewhere. And the foundation is the gas in our car that makes all this possible, right? And as someone who runs a nonprofit, I think about this a lot. I think about the cost of just doing business. And it's phenomenal to me the way our foundation works, how it takes money and puts it in trust and then uses that interest to help cover the expenses. So almost all of the money we give goes where we want it to. And it's amazing to me that that's possible. And then when we select the annual share fund, it comes back to our district and we get to use that to leverage for our district grants. And when you think about my $10 and your $10 and your $10, and the thousands of dollars of impact it has, it's just amazing to me. And it's almost magical how it works. One of the things I have been talking about is some of the work we've been doing as a district in Ukraine. And so for folks who aren't familiar, we were able to get a disaster relief grant, and just the magic of Rotary is personified in this story. So right after the invasion happened, the district governor from Ukraine, it's all one district, so they have one governor. He was on a meeting with folks and they said, what do you need? How can we be helpful to you? And he said, I need a ladder truck. I need to get people out of burning buildings. And 9 days later, because of District 5110, he was handed the keys to a ladder truck. And it was just the magic of the network of Rotarians that made that possible. So disaster relief grant for our district, found a used ladder truck in Europe, and even a Rotarian volunteer to drive it through Poland to hand him the keys. That's just amazing to me how that works. And we've continued to show up for Ukraine in that way. We had a opportunity to be one of the districts who were purchasing medical modular units for the Ukraine, and they wanted about 70 of them. And for folks who are at the grants meeting, you heard this story a little bit, I think. But right now, if you go on to our district website, you can see what those units look like. Dan Smith, our webmaster and podcast expert, is there in Ukraine right now. And he has a video you can see of one of the units that Germany purchased. And people were dying of infection and in childbirth. And so these units are a way to help get medical care because the hospitals have been destroyed. And so we had a foundation dinner and for the district in Eugene. And we needed about $6,000 more so that we could send 2 of these units with some district money that we had. And we asked folks in the room if they would help. And we raised $13,000 that night so that we could send those units. So it's just incredible to me the way Rotarians show up. Subsequently, we've been working on trying to get generators and things because of the power grid being destroyed. And now we're working on things with shelter box and other disaster relief for the earthquake that happened in Syria and Turkey, and also the flooding in Pakistan. So if you're interested in those opportunities, please reach out. The wonderful Leanne Mobley is sort of our zone and district lead on this effort, and she has been keeping us posted on what's available and what funds are available, so that we just continue to, as soon as one grant is done, we continue to apply for another so we can keep the wheels turning. And one of my other favorite thing that happens is we bring other districts together. So the generator project is 7 district governors working together to pool the resources for each district to make a difference. We also saw that same sort of response when we had our communities impacted with disaster, with fires and other things. And I watched Rotary clubs form their own nonprofit to continue that effort beyond the initial disaster and through the rebuilding and retooling folks so they could get back to work, and providing mental health support up the McKenzie River where I live, because people have been impacted by the fire. So it's been incredible. And nationally, internationally, we have our first woman president of Rotary International, who's asked us to imagine what Rotary could look like and to think about Rotary different and new ways. And I'm seeing that in the starting of new clubs. So we have a new satellite club, for example, that just formed. And that's a great way for clubs to make membership accessible to folks who maybe can't get away for a lunch meeting, but they still want them to be a part of their club. So the satellite group, led by our membership chair and district governor nominee designate, Christine Waugh, has a mission of serving the children of the community, and they're meeting twice a month in the evening times, but they're still part of Southtown Rotary. So it's a really cool way to grow your club and make Rotary more accessible. And next year's incoming president, Gordon McAnally, has a theme around creating hope in the world. And his platform is really around mental health. And I love that he's talking about these things. And we're going to bring some training to Rotarians in our district around mental health first aid and things like that, because we're seeing the need in ourselves and in our communities. And when we work with youth, we're seeing more and more communities impacted by youth mental health and youth suicide. And Gordon's brother died by suicide. And so this is something that's really he's passionate about. And I'm really grateful that he's using his platform in this way, because the more we talk about it, the more we can impact people and help them be healthy. So those are sort of the big picture things that are happening. I want to make sure that folks are tracking. We're about to open registration for the district celebration that happened in Eugene at the Graduate Hotel on May 5th and 6th. We'll hope you'll come together and join us for some wonderful presentations, some great TED style talks, and also presentations from the youth exchange students and the four-way speech contest, and a lot of fun things are being planned for you. So I hope you'll join us. And that's the bulk of what I had to say, but I'm happy to answer questions or clarify anything I said. You are. Yeah, make me work. Hi, Doug.
Or can you describe any projects that clubs have gone to that are sort of on the environmental side now that we have that as a new tenant?
Yeah, one of my favorite district projects that we just had come forward at the beginning or end of last year, beginning of this year, I'm unclear exactly, was it was brought forward by Rotaractors from Ecuador, and they were creating nutritional forests in the Amazon. And part of what they're trying to do is reforest areas that have been decimated by deforestation, but it also creates an economic opportunity for them because they're nutritional forests. So they sell the food, they can eat the food and sell the food. So it kind of ticks a bunch of our boxes. We actually are looking for folks at the district level who are interested in the environmental component and would like to help us on our district-wide committee. Sorry, words are hard sometimes. Anyway, so we're looking for ways that we can incorporate it more in our projects. So yeah, I would love ideas about that. Yes.
Other than a well-deserved rest, what's your next step after being?
Thanks for asking. Actually, I agreed to be the district trainer next year. And there's a strategic move in that because I am looking, our district has been really hit hard at the leadership level during the pandemic. We have a lot of vacancies and, it's just been difficult to get out into the clubs and connect with people to bring them into leadership. So that's part of my mission. And I figured if I recruit you into a role, then I should stay around and help build capacity for you. So I've agreed to do that. Yeah. And I really see Rotary as a leadership development organization, and the amount of resources that have been poured into me over the years to build my leadership skill set feels like something that I should pay back, and training feels a way I could do that. Yeah. Back here and then over here.
About your family and your children.
Oh, thanks. Well, people often ask me about the daughter who was diagnosed with the kidney disease. She actually got into that clinical trial and went into remission a few years later and made a full recovery. A few years into that process, I met and married my husband, who many of you have met, who usually travels with me, although he's in Eugene working today. And incidentally just became a Rotarian about 5 months ago. We finally wore him down. He did join a different club than I did, so I wonder what that's. It's been really great. So yeah, I have 5 adult children who are all partnered, and 2 of whom have made me a grandmother, 1 of whom has 8 kids in her family. They too are a blended family. So she had 3 and he had 3, and then they've had 2 together. So they have 10 and down to 3 months old. So that's a busy house. My husband says it's a birthday party every day. Kind of feels like it. And then my other daughter has the one that was ill, who went into recovery, now has 2 kids and is doing really well. So yeah, they keep me busy. We often have a Rotary Youth Exchange student. So 2 of my kids have gone on exchange, and I've hosted 6. One of my daughters met her husband while they were getting their visas to go to Spain. And he was the outbound exchange student from Florence, Oregon. And they came home from their exchange and started dating and got married. They've now resettled back in Florence. And he just became a Rotarian of the Florence Club. So yeah, so it's contagious in my family. No. So 2 have been in Interact, and they went to different schools, and it makes a difference in what school. My son went to OSU and just graduated, but when he started at OSU, he went to his first Rotaract meeting and they asked him to be president and he disappeared. But also the pandemic really impacted their school experience. So yeah, no, I wish they had, but no. You had a question.
I was gonna ask about your family first.
Oh, yeah.
This is an easy one for you. How many clubs are now in District 51?
We have 63. Yeah, it could be 62. We might be, one's kind of on the verge. And that's sort of natural, right? The evolution of clubs, sometimes they do fade out. I hate to say die out, but sometimes that's what's happening. They're aging out. And our district really took a hit into membership during the pandemic, but I'm happy to see almost every club I have visited has new members or guests, or seems to be growing. So I hope that we've sort of stopped the numbers going down, and we'll start to see them go back up.
What is the service area?
It's not a dumb question. A lot of people don't know. It's a great question. So Albany is our furthest north, and then coast to Lakeview, and then south down to Wairika and Montague area. Yeah. It's a big geographical area. Yeah, a lot of driving, which I love a good road trip and an audiobook, and I'm fine. But yeah, we put a lot of miles on our car so far this year. Yeah. They both went to Spain. My son went to Barcelona. Notice the, yep, he taught me that. And then my daughter went to Zaragoza. And we hosted a girl from Vigo. So we sort of feel like we've got that country dialed. Which I've never been, but I'm hoping to this summer, so. Yeah.
Are there any trends as far as breakfast clubs, luncheon clubs, dinner clubs, evening clubs that you have seen in the district? Any success stories or things that you can learn from?
Well, you know, the meeting location and time has been the primary conversation among presidents this year, especially as we come back from the pandemic. Majority of our clubs are noonday clubs. We do have quite a number that are breakfast clubs, which always amazes me that people can get up that early week after week, but I haven't made that shift for myself yet. And we have a few after hours clubs, but like I said, we predominantly are midday group. But I think where people are having success is where they're changing it up a little bit. Some clubs have dialed back how often they're meeting, or they're changing how they're meeting. So they, like their 5th week would be a social in the evening, or it just, people are varying it up. If you vary it too much, it can be hard to track. And I've listened to people say, we've tried this, now we've come back to where we were before. So I think folks are just trying to figure out how they can meet the needs of their club. And what I'm hearing from International is do whatever you need to do that makes Rotary accessible to your community. And what they've said is, we would like you to meet at least twice a month. And meet can have a lot of different connotations. It could be a service project, it could be a social. So I'm hearing stories, not in our district yet, but of clubs who only meet in homes, and because they have young children and they're rotating. We have people who are meeting twice a month, like I said, and one's a service project and one's a social. So they don't have a bell, they don't do any of our traditional things. And so I think a balance of those things is where our club is sort of seeing the most success, where you can balance sort of our traditions and some innovation, so we can be responsive to younger professionals joining our mix, right? Yeah. No one size fits all answer, I'm sorry to say. Yeah.
A couple of council legislation ago, they Rotary used up the rules on independence like we just.
Yeah.
We also allowed the clubs to do different focuses. Do we have any clubs in our district that are say, we just like focus on the environment?
Yeah.
Like the old farm, or you even have ethnic clubs go out now and have a lot of areas.
Yeah.
So do we have any of that in our district, or any outlook?
Yeah, so a lot of folks are calling those cause-based clubs or affinity clubs or whatever, like you were describing. And I think that I'm hearing about a lot of them in our zone. We don't have any currently in our district. There is a new one up north that is an anti-human trafficking club, and that's their platform, and that's what they're working on. And there's an e-club that's doing something like that too, but not in our district yet. And there's room for folks who have a passion and an idea to start something like that. So we would support that for sure. But yeah, nobody's brought anything like that forward yet. But it's a really cool way to really focus the effort. So like that satellite club has made a decision that this is the only thing they're going to focus on, which is supporting children in the community. And so that's as close to a cause-based club, I think, that we have right now. Yeah. Yeah, Doug.
District conference, although I don't think you call it conference.
Celebration conference, same diff. Yeah.
Sort of standard program kind of thing, like classes.
No, we're changing it up on you a little bit. We're doing a TED style thing where we'll all be together the whole day.
Okay.
Yeah, no breakouts. So
One big room.
one big room. I mean, there will be a hall of friendship, and we'll have the ability for folks to be able to take a break, but we're trying to set it up so that more connection, more time together. Yeah. We have some pretty great speakers coming in, so hopefully.
I was thinking, as we look at younger people, that is. Have there been some clubs that you feel in our district that have been successful with certain ways of getting younger people?
Well, I think, what does success look like? And what does younger look like? Because I mean, what's fun for me is sometimes I'm still considered kind of young in Rotary. So, but yeah, I think, internationally, we've been talking about the way that I think Rotary International has been addressing that is through Rotaract, right? And so first it was lifting the age cap on Rotaract so that folks weren't aging out, because what they were finding was folks were aging out, but not going right into Rotary like you would expect. So they lifted the cap, and now because they've elevated Rotaract to the same level as Rotary, they're members of Rotary just like Rotarians are. I think they're going to have to address the dues piece of that, because why wouldn't we all just join Rotaract, where dues are $5 a year versus the 70 something that we pay? We get a lot of value for that 70, so I'm not advocating that we don't pay dues to international. I mean, I think it's important, but what our folks have said, and they've focused on this a lot at PETS, because I guess coming out of Council of Legislation, they had spent an exorbitant amount of time arguing about a 50-cent due increase at the international level. And really where we can affect dues impact is at the club level. And so that's what sort of John Hugo and folks have said, focus on how you can make Rotary accessible dues wise at your club level. So I think cost of Rotary, and then the value added, right? So asking young people what they get out of it. And I think that's why the flexibility is coming into play, because a lot of young people, my kids' age, they don't want to go sit in a meeting. They don't understand why we have the lunch meeting. They kind of think it's weird. And they would rather just show up and do a service project. So I think that's what folks are doing, is trying to meet the needs of the folks that they are targeting. I also think we have opportunities to just push in rather than pull them into us. Look for what they're doing and then join them. And eventually I think that it'll become contagious, you know, what we do is pretty contagious. Yeah.
Gen Xers and Gen Zers, and to see where those younger people are at in those groups, because they have a totally different mindset of what they want to do. Thank you for calling me out.
Yeah. So, you know, they are talking about it a lot. And honestly, this is an interesting conversation because it kind of leads into the DEI stuff that Rotary's working on. And that's a really North American centric issue. Around the world, it's less of an issue. And so international just tracks gender and age. And so I think that ways that they're trying to make these things more accessible are putting people who identify, right? So they're having Rotaractors serve at the international and district and zone levels, right? So that you can't make decisions about how to include youth if you don't have youth at the table. So I think that's what they're doing now, is elevating that voice and letting people say what they like. I don't know that we know what the answers are, but we're having the conversations. And we are paying attention to age and gender. I wish we would pay attention to some other measures as well, but we're starting to see that. These are good questions, guys. Keep them.
What's been your favorite part of your SDG so far?
Being in the clubs with you all. I mean, honestly, it's a joy. It's really fun. And I didn't know that it was going to happen. And I actually scheduled visits late because I could not take canceling one more thing. It was so hard to watch everything just get scheduled and canceled and scheduled. And when we didn't have a PETS for our presidents-elect, so when you're district governor-elect, you're in charge of the training for your presidents-elect. And so that whole year, we didn't have anything in person, and it just took all the wind out of our sails. So being in meetings with you all, and then we did a presidential retreat, and we got about 23 who could make it. And we were together for an overnight sort of training and connection. And that was just, it reinforces why PETS is so instrumental in what we do, because people build these relationships that serve them and support them when they're in these leadership roles. And that's been so fun. So yeah, you all are my favorite part.
Did you get a chance in the midst of all of the pandemic and everything, did you get a chance to go to an international conference or?
I went to Houston last year and I'm going to Melbourne this year. So I'm really excited. Yeah, people told me that Houston was my first, and people said that it was muted compared to what they typically are, but you know, they were unsure it was going to happen. And so I think they were careful in their planning. So I'm really excited to get to go to Melbourne. I think it will give me my taste. You're nodding, so I think you probably agree. It'll give me my first taste. Yeah, that was part of the hardship. Was I was supposed to go to the press too, and both of them, you know, one was in Taipei and one was in Hawaii. They've been great places to go, and they both were moved online. I hate to say canceled because they still happened. They just happened via Zoom, which is not the same at all. And I'm grateful to Zoom because it has made some things better. We can now, you can serve at the district level on a committee from the comfort of your home. So I hope you'll consider it. Anyway, but so it's made a lot of things more accessible, but it also took a lot of the stuff, the energy I get from being in the rooms with Rotarian. It was really hard to find online. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and letting me come and talk to you. And I appreciate all you do.
Thank you so much, Amy. That was great. All right, I think Judy Basker is filling in for Kelly as Sergeant at Arms today, Sergeant at Arms. Kelly is dutifully taking care of our Tommy.
Hello, everyone. And yes, I am definitely the second string. All of our first string sergeants are out and about today. I see Lutz on the Zoom, and if I'd known Dawn was going to be here, I would have tried to drop it on you. But thank you very much. That was just, you are really warm and engaging. And it was very emotional listening to you. I really appreciate that you came here today. I love Rotary. And some of you know I was in the big Medford Club for almost 10 years before moving over here. It's really different and, you know, very structured and organized. But I loved it. And I love this club too. I've just really been having a good time. I sometimes get sergeants confused with inspiration. And so I'll do inspiration down the road. But first and foremost, I want to do my own thing today. And I have a $20 happy buck to honor Bev and Doug. Because every single time I read the paper or see anything anywhere, these two are just out in the community doing everything. And in honor of their service, here's my happy bucks. Having said that, the room is full of people like that, and that's just who I chose today. So, okay, I think I kind of called ahead, got a few people lined up here, so which is what we did in my old club. So I'm going to call on Jim. Huber, you got some things to share with us? I know you've been traveling and here, yeah. Is this the only one? Good, maybe I make him.
Judy asked me to talk a little bit about the travels. I went through my, but anyway, we went to Pat's back in February up in Seattle, which is a wonderful experience. I thought there were like 3,000 people there. I think it was more like maybe one total, something, incredible number of people. My wife and I just got back from Florida last week. We were in Amelia Island at a wedding. Our daughter was the maid of honor and a college girlfriend she went to school with, and that was a lot of fun. And then just Saturday, Kirk and I, we didn't drive together, but we went up to the training assembly in Cottage Grove, which was loads of information. But what I really came away with is just the people I ran into. I met this guy kind of to answer or embellish your answer, the answer to your question. This fellow from, I think he's from, I can't recall, Port Orford, but he's a member of an E-Club. And there's 23 members, and you can probably online, they have members from, I think, Pakistan, I think it's in India, maybe Ukraine, or they just sent somebody to Ukraine. And I said, how do you guys do projects? And he looked at me like I was crazy and said, of course we do projects. It's interesting. It's a small club, 23 people, but they're purely an E-Club. And then, but the other thing, I used to work with this fellow before I retired, and he moved away to Port Orford also. And as I walked in to register, he was standing right there. I hadn't seen him in 8 or 9 years, and anyway, it's great. It was just a nice connection. So,
Thank you.
so I'm gonna get $20 to, you know, feeling good.
Thank you. I forgot to say two things. We've had time for every single person to share today. And I am so excited because I want a bobblehead. For the last 15 years, you know, when you reach a certain age and your family or friends are giving you a present and anything, I want more candles, you know. It's not wine, I can't eat it, you know, make a donation to charity. But I'm on record I want bobblehead, and I want her to be spelled like that.
There's a QR code, we can get you one.
Very good, very good. Okay, who else is up? I think Hattie Hansen, I want to ask her to share. She and I, if you don't know, have been meeting almost weekly for 3 months, talking about donations and support for Porch Fest. And so I've become very good friends with Patty and her dog or her husband. And so Patty's going to give us an update.
What do you like better, the dog? I know.
No comment.
Okay, as Judy said, we've been meeting pretty much weekly. And I think I tried to add up how many people we've approached. I think it's clearly over 100. So, and we tried a few different things this time. We applied to Boise Cascade and Washington Federal and some other grant programs. We'll see how that goes. So anyway, so where we stand right now, we've got about $28,000 in committed commitment from FISMA. And we collected about $14,358. So that's good, because sometimes you can get commitments and it's pulling teeth to get the money. Judy's really good about that. So right. Pulling teeth. Anyway, so we have probably about 40 that we're gonna stop approaching people because we're getting near the deadline, and there's a lot to do once we have the sponsors committed and we have their money. We have to make signs, we have to get logos, we have to write thank you notes. I mean, there's a lot to do, following up on different requests. Anyway, so right now we're just going to be in the closing what we have open, and we hope to get to about 35 maybe. So, but which would be great, So that's my update, and I give $20 because I don't have to approach any new people.
Thank you, Patty. You know, it is really hard work, but I do want to share that for me, it's actually fun. And I have that kind of personality where, you know, like Judy, if I give you $1,000, will you leave me alone? But I never take it personally when someone says no. And I'm not kidding you. I've had 4 or 5 of the new donors I've approached this year saying, I wanted to donate for several years and nobody ever called me. And I want to share one other really creative thing that we came up with. You know, I grew up here, was gone for 40 years and then came back. And I went to kindergarten with a guy named John Salisbury, who I think I told you he went on the 2nd grade and I went on the 1st grade because that was our academic level. He anyway has come back to town and is a lawyer in town. He teaches math at RCC. He and his sister and brother grew up on Washington Boulevard. And I called him up and said, you know, we need you to sponsor your family home. And so we got his sister, who's a retired librarian in Portland, and their other brother, who's a divorce lawyer in Pasadena. So we know he's loaded. Anyway, they're doing $1,000 to sponsor their family home. So I will put in a pitch. If any of you know anyone that we should approach, we'd be happy to do that. I consider giving a privilege, not a duty, not an obligation. So I don't feel bad about asking people to share. If you can't, just say no, thank you, and you know, move on. Okay, I think Josie was going to talk a little bit about what's happening in the paper.
So we have a lot going on at the chamber, but I decided I wanted to share something we did last Friday. And actually Debbie came out to it. So we have volunteers that help out at the visitor center right now. We have about 12 of them. Well, last year we lost Ginger Ford, who I'm sure many of you had met with or worked with in some capacity. And she had volunteered with the chamber for over 10 years. So we decided to actually get a memorial tree through the city of Grants Pass. We applied last year and it was finally ready to plant. So we had a ceremony at the chamber We planted a crepe myrtle and invited lots of people. We had the mayor come out, some city councilors. A lot of her classmates from high school came, some family, friends. And she'd also been really involved in the historical society, with the committee through the city. So it was just a fun ceremony to celebrate her. So if you knew her, the tree is out in the front and we'll have a little plaque in memory of her. So it was a really nice celebration and thanks to all that came.
I want my bobblehead to look like her, because that's what I looked like about 35 years ago. We have lecture, Josh. I see you're not here very often. Would you like to say something? Even, just hello and thank you, you leave me alone.
I put $5 in there, so because I'm with you guys and not in Salem. So
Very good. Anybody else? You got someone else who'd like to share that?
I want to say thanks for saying nice things about me and Beth, but I want to say, everybody in here is doing really good things, which is what you said. And so I'm happy bucks for that. And then the one time I'm there at the shelter gambling and hustling people for money, and they photograph me and get me caught. So the $10 I went off of that person playing dice, I injured. It was mad.
Anybody else? Yeah, we got Bev back there. I read lips, so somebody can tell me what she said.
I just wanted to say, give happy bucks for the contagiousness, like you said, of Rotary. My kids are in their Rotaract, the Rotary clubs, Hillsborough and Eugene. And I just love that contagiousness of it all. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that.
The highlight of my week while I was working at RCC was going to Rotary. Anybody else? Oh, yeah. Speaking of RCC. Well, I have $5 to say happy birthday to Dawn. And that's okay. And to Jim, that who else's birthday? John? Yes, I have. Okay, now I have $10. I'm gonna have another. I have another $5 because I just joined Club Northwest and worked out yesterday for the first time in months, and I'm in tremendous. Come on out. Anybody else? All right, well, thank you guys. It was fun. Back to you, back to. Yeah.
Thank you, Judy. All right. Okay, so next week's program, first of the month. So our favorite program of the month, we have a vocational from one of our newer members, Dan Mata. Today, so I'm always trying to find out which crazy national holiday it is. They have all of these, National Gym Day. Like gym, like the name Jim. There's a day for every name, things like that. So today, there's one called, and this started apparently in the 2010s in America. It's called The Grass is Always Browner on the Other Side of the Fence Day. And the idea is to be grateful for what you have, like don't always go looking out for something else. And so your thought for the day is a quote from author Robert Fulghum. And it says, "The grass is not, in fact, always greener on the other side of the fence. Fences have nothing to do with it. The grass is greenest where it is watered. When crossing over fences, carry water with you and tend the grass wherever you may be." All right, I hope we will see some of you or many of you tonight at Oregon Port Authority. And if not, we will see you next week.